Here we are, we're live. Shh.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, Sir Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And Dr. Squee.
Dragon! You're going to have to put up with nail varnish. It's too hot for the fucking dragon mask. I'm sorry. I just can't do it. You cannot add any extra
Do
heat.
you mean that you've kept your human skin on?
Yes,
not...
sorry. It's, Sorry, the heat's got to me. It's so hot, I couldn't remove my human mask to reveal the dragon within. It sometimes, due to camera trickery, looks like I'm removing a dragon mask, but you're right. It's, of course, my human skin removing to show my dragon gloriousness. Yeah. Thank you.
Glad we've got that sorted out.
Yeah. It's, I don't want people to get the wrong impression. I could seem insane.
Absolutely not. So we're back this week for the last time for the foreseeable future to talk about the Dominion War. And I think we succeeded in our goal, which was to crack on with the Dominion War and actually make a bit of a dint in it.
Now you're gonna have to really convince me why this first episode is part of the Dominion War.
Because it's got Alexander in it, and he's the most pivotal character in the Dominion War. It's just kind of an epilogue, isn't it? It's meant to be a fun interlude. It's not fun, spoilers. But that I feel like it's meant to be a nice little epilogue to.
Yeah, I mean, they do throughout the episode, like the first 5 minutes is just them repeatedly saying, "We're back on the station. Isn't it great to be back on the station?"
Yeah.
After that war, it's great to be back on the station. I mean, like the amount of references for the last 6 episodes, I think make it count. Apart from that, it is a bit dicey. But
and also, you know what? We don't need to watch this one again for a few years now. Now that
there's some really nice stuff in there, but there's so many fucking cliches, like the whole, like the. Martok's wife being the de facto mother-in-law character, which is just played to death, the grumpy mother-in-law. The fact you've got like them having a bit of a Barney before, like just have something else crazy happening which they can react to while they're trying to plan the wedding. It would have been so much more fun. As
you've probably deduced, we're talking about the episode You Are Cordially Invited from season 6 of Deep Space Nine, which, as Squee said, is the first. We're back on the station, so the formula of the show's been re-established after the retaking the station arc, and I think it's fair to say it's mixed results with this one.
I think this is a very cheap episode, and I think this is when a cheap episode isn't as good as some of the others. It hasn't got a B plot. Oh, if there is a B plot, you'll have to explain it to me because I've missed it.
I mean, it sort of even turns. Well, I guess within the A plot, it's got 2 plots because it's got the road to the Klingon marriage, whatever it's meant to be. It's got that as the kind of like the stag do is basically the B plot.
Yeah.
But
I suppose Kira and Odo reconciling.
Oh, that's just fucking bullshit. I'm definitely calling bullshit on this. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It angers me.
That's fine.
They go into a closet, which sounds like very cool 15 minutes of heaven kind of territory. I only wish if they'd done that, I would have no problems. Cool. They went in there to talk. They ended up, that would have been fine. But the fact they go in there and like at the end of that, it's like brilliant. That's that plot line resolved. Why not just have
it's kind of it's almost like the writers going, yeah, we just want you to accept that they're okay with each other again, so we're going to pay it some lip service. We're not going to show you the reconciliation,
and we're not going to dwell on it.
Yeah, but they've done too much good work up to this point in creating this rift that it is just hard to swallow.
It's a very weak payoff.
I just want them to open up that cupboard, wardrobe, whatever, and then to be smoking some cigarettes. Of course, Odo's one, which kind of just gets longer again, and the ash just becomes
he does that thing.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, yeah, if you're going to do it, let's just at least do it. At least it. But it's the worst of all worlds. They don't wrap it up as in they're together now. Which, like, after 6 seasons, I'm ready. I'm ready for them to actually.
We'll get there.
They've done it to. Yeah, but the thing is, they've done it to death already, and we got another fucking season to go of them not getting together, and them kind of won't they? And it's like it's the worst of all worlds, because you sort of wrap up something in a very clumsy way, but you don't get them together at the end of it. It's so annoying.
It does feel like, they talk about this sort of particularly in reference to TNG and Voyager, really, but like the reset button, the mythical sort of TV reset button, where at the end of every episode you hit the reset button and everything's back to normal. And Kira and Odo feels like that. It's not given enough space in the story to feel like they have arrived at this reconciliation, and we're just expected to buy it, and the reset button's pressed off screen while they're in this cupboard.
And also, what's he going to have said which makes up for him basically leaving them for people to die? Like, what's he going to have said in that time?
He will have said, "I am really, really sorry. Really sorry."
And there's one of two
really,
ways.
Really.
There's one of two ways she can go with this. Like, so either she can get deeply offended that he's basically not cared about anyone else, but turn back to their side just because he wants to get with her, or either she's deeply offended by it, or she kind of accepts it. And if she accepts it, it's kind of selling out the character as well, because Kira isn't the type to just go, "Oh, swoon." It just there's no way of doing this.
I don't think it's a swoony thing. I mean, if we're gonna sort of deal with it serious, if we're gonna take this seriously, which I think is a bit more than the writers actually did, but
yes,
I think Odo will have somehow conveyed to Kira what it feels like to be in the link and why he's got such a strong connection, and that's why it was so seductive for him. But ultimately, he's decided not to pursue that because of her, but also because of his friends and his ties to the Alpha Quadrant and blah, blah, blah. And I think we're supposed to assume that all these conversations have taken place, but
even
yeah,
if we
it don't
heard
work.
all of that, it wouldn't convince me, because like she already knew that. He already knew that. There is no new information happening here that's going to change either of their minds. Anyway.
Well, it did, because the best friends at the end, and you need to live with it and move on.
You see, and we've spent, we'll say, about 5 minutes talking about this. That's 5 minutes longer than the writers did. They just go, in the cupboard, true. Happy friends!
And you know why they've got it? Because this episode is just an absolute hoot and a half. And that's why we can't have a serious moment. And Facebook Use says the Kira Odo storyline was the only reason I watched DS9 the first time around. It was too on and off.
So it's the only reason why you watched it, but it was too... Oh, so you watched it because you liked it, but it was too on and off?
But it was too on and off to... Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's...
Bush 1G has also put, "Aye, what's up, G?" Thank you.
What's up, Bush 1G?
Play
Unless you're George Bush, in which case, go away. Yeah, so... Yeah, what were we saying? So, yeah, on and off it is, but that's partially, I feel, a holdover of the fact that DS9 was trying to do more serialized storytelling, but wasn't always allowed to. So you're allowed to have an episode every now and again that deals head on with Kira and Odo's feelings, like the one we got, Heart of Stone, or Children of Time, something like that. But then because it does, when it's not doing deep Dominion War arcs, it does have to be more episodic, so you can't have the characters talking about it the week after. I mean, DS9 at this stage is pushing those boundaries now, and he's getting away with a little bit more and more. And so we do get a more serialized love story. But yeah, if you were watching it as a Odo and Kira shipper, then you'd be pretty disappointed. Up until season 6, you're probably going to get 2 or 3 episodes.
And if you're watching it as a non-shipper, you're going to be irritated because it just fucking strings up. Like if you're watching it as a neutral, anyone's going to get irritated by it. I'm sorry, it is the classic will they, won't they, which gets pulled for too long.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it when we get to them getting together, but I'm never thoroughly convinced from Kira's side, to be fair. But
I mean, in all fairness, like with any of these kind of romance stories, it's a kind of a poison chalice because either you get them together, and if you do it too early, then you've either got to continue playing out their relationships once they're together, or just kind of like leave it as just a thing that's there, which I think probably the latter is probably the best you can do, is just have them in a relationship just as a aside. You don't have to go into it for all the time, but then you lose that as a plot driver, which it always was, or you wait until the last minute and then you're stringing out too long to get there. It's difficult.
Yeah, even the good ones struggle with it, don't they? Like Squee, I know you're a big Cheers fan, but let's be honest, Sam and Diane, I got fed up with it after a while.
That's why I think Cheers got away with it, is because halfway through they changed to Rebecca, and they didn't ever make them a couple. They had
they sort of did a weird thing with it, and it's we're going to have a baby together. Oh no, we're not.
It was weird. It was weird, and the baby thing went nowhere. But I like the fact you never really felt quite after the first series or 2. You never really felt they were going to get together. It was kind of clear that they were going to stay in the friend zone somewhere, but friends who occasionally hook up, which I was fine with. And in fact, that hadn't really been done. The friends who hooked up on TV at that stage.
True.
It's like O'Neill and Sam in SG1. They had the wouldn't they, all the way through, and that was never paid off. But
one of the better ones for it, I think, because they played it very rarely, and it wasn't a ever-present thing. Whereas with Kira and Odo, most episodes there's some allusion to it, even if it's not a main storyline.
Yeah. So before we get to Kira and Odo, we get the actual plot, which is it's all about the wedding. So Cisco meets up with Martok, and they're talking about Alexander, and Martok's going, "He is a fine boy." It's like, really? We saw you with him a couple of weeks ago, and you did not seem to be a fan. But maybe he's proved himself in glorious battles since we last saw him. Who knows?
I mean, they seem to be doing a lot of using a lot of shoe leather to get us invested in Alex, which we'll never see again.
No, this is it. This is for anyone listening, watching. This is the last time Alexander will feature in the timeline of Star Trek. We may go back and do the Alexander episodes another time.
Why would we do that to ourselves?
Because there's some good Worf ones in.
Yeah, and the time loop episode. Good, yeah. Basically, Sam and Jack in SG did get together in the loop episode.
Oh, yes, come on,
Mobius. But that was Jack who did that because he knew didn't matter, and that it forgotten about it before.
This is on
another one.
It's been out a long time. I've never seen SG1, but maybe can we go a little bit spoiler light? I might get around to it at some point.
I don't think that gives away. That's
I think the loop episode's really good from what I've heard. There's loads of shagging in it.
Yeah, I was actually thinking if there's another episode where it's not a time loop, but there is it's an episode, a 2-part called Mobius, where also something happens, but it's a name cancelling timeline, basically.
Yeah, it's taken the Voyager approach to time.
Yeah, you want to do something which you don't want to do in the main plot. Yeah.
And so Worf and Dax decide to get married at Quark's. And Dax's justification of this, I really enjoy, because she says, well, Alexander's been reassigned, and it may be a long time before you see him again. Yeah, never.
You
won't even mention him in Picard. Again, world's greatest dad.
Never, ever, ever.
Won't even pay one reference to him ever again. I don't think he ever mentions him after the Stardate.
I think
this is it.
I also think, I can. If anyone can think of any reference to Alexander after this episode, let us know, because we can't think it in any show.
And you know what I was going to say?
We'll be interested to hear from the books, but they don't count in what we're saying.
Well, that's what I was going to say. But now that I think of it, I don't think there's been many Alexander books written. They've written a story about the bloke who's Kirk's defense lawyer in court martial. Yeah, he's got a whole series of books to himself. Them two, Department of Temporal Investigations, they've got a whole string of novels.
Oh, I'd like to read that.
Alexander, nothing. Not a thing. Never mentioned.
And I know I've said this before, but it's still like, when I thought this, I can't get it out of my head. The fact that Picard was all about, that third series was all about legacies and about their children and about their next generation. Not one fucking mention of Alex. That Alexander never gets mentioned. It's like, whoa, you are the shittest dad ever. Like,
yeah, no one's.
But with all the kids around, all the kind of talk of you might die here, you don't think it's like, I might just pay mention to him.
You're never gonna get a scene where Picard walks onto the bridge and Alexander's at the security station and Picard goes, it wouldn't be the Enterprise without a Rizhenko at the security station. It's just never, ever, ever going to happen. What an idiot. Anyway, so Worf invites his closest male friends that happen to be regulars on this show to his bachelor party.
It might be closest geographically.
To be fair, in O'Brien's case, this makes perfect sense because he did deliver his daughter Molly.
Yeah, it does. O'Brien, fine.
Yeah, and who's worked with him longer than O'Brien? Like, consistently. Yeah.
What about your brother Kern? No, he's had his mind wiped and he's off somewhere else. We'll let Kern go. Yeah.
Anyone off the Enterprise, just anyone at all. Like Frakes will go into an episode of Star Trek at the drop of a hat, and you didn't think of calling him up. And Marina Sirtis would come along if Frakes is there.
The excuse is, well, the Enterprise is obviously doing something very important in the war, so that's why they can't turn up. But again, a little bit of lip service. You could have just had O'Brien say, I'm surprised the Enterprise. Something. The Enterprise people didn't make it, and was they are on a mission in Gamma Hydra 11946.
You do get away with that because it's done at very short notice.
Yeah.
But again, it's a classic. You just need a one-line explanation.
Or it'd be nice if we cut to a shot and we're on the Enterprise E, and Riker's there and Troy comes in and she goes, Imzadi, we've got a letter through from Worf. He's getting married. Oh, Worf's getting married. Wonderful. Let me see the guest list. Well, there's Martok. Cisco. Yeah. Alexander, we're not going.
or alternatively, Riker's going like, oh great, who's he marrying? Dax. Oh no, we can't go.
No.
I can't. But why? You don't want to know. Well, let's say we're even over the whole you and him love affair.
And then and Deanna's like, who's Jadzia Dax? Like, it used to be Curzon Dax, and Deanna's like, oh yeah, no.
And Riker's also is like, oh yeah, actually with him too.
Yeah, no.
I screwed a lot of Daxes, like the whole I timed just to do the whole line.
Like right the way back to the one with webbed feet from Star Trek 6.
Yeah, so nice call back.
I'm a geek, me. I can do these deep Star Trek pulls. It's unbelievable. Anyway, Martok's wife arrives, and as you say, she is the stereotypical mother-in-law dialed up to 11 because she's a Klingon. I ain't got a right lot to it is just cliched, and you've got Martok. The scene is quite funny because you've got her coming in, throwing her weight around, mouthing off and everything, and Martok just goes, she is magnificent.
Yeah,
that's great. That is one of the great scenes in this.
Yeah, isn't she magnificent?
Yeah, that's really good.
And she's just belittled him in front of everyone.
Yeah, and then you do get this quite good scene with Worf and Martok where Worf's going, well, you know, why doesn't she like Dax? He's like, well, she doesn't like you either, Worf. And Worf's he's almost embarrassed to say it to Worf, like,
oh no, it was the fact that he goes like, oh, he doesn't like you after anyway, Worf, and it's like it was my right to invite you into the house without asking her. So basically, Martox, you're the reason for all this bullshit, and just because you pissed her off by not asking her first.
She was all right with you, and then saw you brought Alexander into the family as well, and then
oh god, yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, and when they go to do the trials and everything, and again, this, if they weren't doing it in Sons and Daughters, which they were, but they're just not holding back on going, look how crap Alexander is now. He has just become this crappy comic relief. Like, he can't do anything. Like, he's the worst at everything they do. All through this episode, he's knocking shit over in quarks.
And now he's become a Klingon warrior, and he is proudly saying, in front of everyone, it's like, yeah, I can barely say my name in Klingon. It's like, you shouldn't be saying that if you're a warrior now. You should not be boasting about that. How is he on a Klingon ship and he's never learned Klingon? I know they've got translators, but still.
Like, it's also there, though, isn't it? He says, like, I'm useless, but the crew sees it as a good luck charm. The worse I am, the safer they feel.
Yeah,
because all the bad shit's happening to me.
They've got him hanging by the wing mirror. He's just like lucky dice. He just hangs there all day. Alexander. But it's just, he's rubbish. He is rubbish.
Yeah, he is.
Dax, though, does give it all a good go. Like, she's holding them pots and stuff, and you know, it's like pulling teeth talking about this one.
You know what? Can we just leave this?
I've got
no
notes
idea
about
when
it.
The Facebook user put this up, but can we just leave that at the bottom of the screen? The whole thing very disappointing.
Very disappointing.
The whole episode, doesn't it?
It does.
I found it really difficult to watch this a couple of times.
Yeah.
Tonight, it's been.
It's funny because there's a couple of there's some bits in it which are quite fun, and there's you could have made so much more out of this. It's really frustrating for the missed opportunity. It should be so big and so fun to have a Klingon wedding.
Yeah, it should.
And Dax's outfit aside, there's not much fun to be had here.
No, it's true. I've got a bit. A good bit is where Dax digs up some shit on the family, and she's going, well, you say that's your 93rd maternal grandmother, but actually, I think you'll find it's just a very nice sort of passive-aggressive dig, as if to say, you better let me in the family, because I found some shit here. So
it's also perfectly Dax as well. Like, Jadzia is the person who would research that and find that out, and it's great.
Yeah, if you want me to do the family tree, I will do the family tree, but be careful what you ask for. Yeah,
and she puts it out there. She's like, I'll recite it the way you want me to, but you know that I know that.
I have actually learnt this.
Yeah, it's a nice little power struggle between them.
Like, the interesting part of this is that I can't even remember her name, Martox's wife.
Cyrilla.
Mrs. Martox.
Cyrilla.
Oh, Cyrilla. Yeah.
Cyrilla should be really impressed that Dax has actually gone to the effort of not just memorizing a list, but she's actually gone to the effort of learning about her family.
Yeah, but she didn't want to actually learn about the family.
Well, that's it. It's a double-edged sword. She wants Dax to memorize this list and know all the family, but she doesn't actually want her to know the family.
Yeah, I think the best thing was...
It's that thing, be careful what you ask for.
And it's the suggestion that basically Dax just saw this disparity in years, and as opposed to doing what everyone else would have done, just memorizing the list of dates and stuff, she's going, well, that's a gap. I know, research, like, because I love the fact that she is the ultimate party girl, but she is never anything but a great scientist, great researcher. She's great at her job. It's like it's really nice, because generally they do really well at painting her as a really well-rounded, great character. But then in this episode, you form every male and female stereotype going,
you do,
including the narky mother-in-law, including women can't possibly get on, they'll just bicker. Men, on the other hand, are going because they're great warriors, and if they're not drinking, they're doing great challenges and stuff. And of course, you've got Julian and Miles as the horn dogs of the universe. Suddenly, like as soon as they hear stag do, they go, "Oh!" Like,
yeah,
and Klingons
go and have a wank, guys. Go and have a wank. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're thinking like Klingons stag do. They're thinking that it's going to be a massive party.
Yeah, which you think it would be, because
Yeah.
Klingons basically their business meetings are like massive stag do's.
Yeah.
But having said that, in this country there is a bit of a grey area between what constitutes a business meeting and what constitutes a party. So that was possibly not the best metaphor I could have used there, but you know what I mean.
The shoe leather you took on that, and it was all worthwhile, Jim.
I'll be honest, didn't even pop in my head till halfway through talking.
No, I thought the use of business meeting was very pointed there.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I was actually thinking of the thing they do at the start of season 5 in Apocalypse Rising, where that's basically a stag do, but it's actually to appoint people to a council.
Yeah, the Order of Kalis, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a award ceremony.
Yeah,
so but then an actual stag do is just a load of torture and stuff. So
and the
whereas
they didn't in the Order of Kalis initiation ceremony, they get drunk all night, and it's whoever's standing actually passes. I guess their justification is they've already done the battle bit to earn it, so now they're doing the stamina bit. But here, where it's about getting married, you just do the torture bit and don't touch the food or any drink.
Yeah.
It's anyway. So then Dax's party at least looks like a decent party. So Dax is having a proper full-on hen do, apart from Nog's weird dancing, which I wasn't.
I always love Nog's dancing here.
I do, because it's doing stuff with his ears and all that. It's definitely Ferengi dancing he's doing.
And it was this whole thing seems very Ferengi somehow. I don't know.
So is that this thing with his ears? Is that the equivalent of Michael Jackson going hee hee and sort of cupping himself?
But if you think of like the first time we saw Ferengi back in TNG, the Outpost, they did that sort of.
They did, yeah.
So it is. I think if he's been told to dance like a Ferengi, he's done his research on Ferengi moves.
And it's probably it works kind of evolutionarily, because I'm sure you can trace back dancing from different countries and cultures within Earth. Like they trace back, like there's probably some ancestral things to those dances, why we dance and why we move in the ways we do. So this seems kind of very fitting. It's very kind of guttural and claws. And
I just thought it a bit silly. Anyway, it's not the worst thing.
I actually thought it made a lot more sense. Them all dancing in different ways and very strange ways to look at.
I agree.
Because it's lots of different species, and it's like, just dance and have fun. And they all doing their own interpretation of dancing.
And can we also, again, on the grounds of the, you've got the guy who's doing the Samoan dancing, I want to say. I'm really wrong, but somewhere from that region of the world. He's doing like the fire sticks, and he's got like some sort of grass skirt on. Looks fantastic. Love that. Absolutely great. Perfect for a hen night. But then you've got like the girls all going, oh, Sawoon, especially. Again, it's another one where they just use Lita to go, oh, look at that fit man. Oh. And again, it's just a really bad. The gender stereotypes in this episode.
Yeah, they are.
Quite fucking offensive. Given that I think DS9 quite often does that right. And the way that they show Quark and the Dabo girls is not complimentary to Quark. It's like they show them being used like that, but it's always in a way which shows that he's the bad guy for doing that.
Yeah, it does. But then that is quite in keeping with Quark. Like,
well, exactly,
I don't think they're doing that to make Quark look like anything else.
No, but my point is, it's like in those instances, it's not selling anyone out by gender. It's not saying the women are like only worthy to do that. I'm saying usually they handle that really well, and it's more about the exploitation than it is about the women being stupid.
Yeah.
Whereas in this episode, where you've got Lita just going, swoon, that guy's wearing some shorts. My husband's just here, but fuck it. It seems to sell her out a lot. Which Lita's probably the one which they sell out the most, unfortunately, in the episodes.
True. Then we're talking about like gender stereotypes, but then we just go into storytelling tropes, which is, oh, there's a big misunderstanding, the wedding's off, oh no, it's back on, no, it's off again, no, it's back on again, and it's just so silly and just going through the motions. Like, Dax won't swallow her pride, and then they try and inject a bit of humor with O'Brien and Bashir going, oh, we can eat, and then Cisco, no, you can't eat. And
yeah, they were the two comedy reliefs in this. They just came on, did something goofy, and went away again, which I kind of enjoyed. I'm not going to lie, I kind of enjoyed their goofy look.
It's like, I like the start of the ceremony. You've got like Warfare will draw a river of blood, and it's like where they cut the hands and all that Klingon way. And Wolf's turned around getting his knife ready, and he sort of like, someone stepped forward and all of them stepped backwards and leave Julian stood there.
Yeah. It's lucky it wasn't Alexander. He'd have probably cut his arm off or something stupid, isn't it?
Like that was another part where they have him pass out because of the heat.
Yeah.
Like, he's still Klingon. It might be rubbish, but he's still Klingon anatomy. He shouldn't be passing out.
I would love the idea that Alex goes to cut his hand. He goes like, sorry, I accidentally caused a warp core breach. Why were you doing it near the warp core? Well, look, the light was good there, so I used that to cut my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, they wrap it up. There's quite a nice bit where Cisco talks to Dax. Like, I do like the way their friendship is shown, that Cisco still looks at Dax as an older man and as a mentor, but Jadzia also sees Cisco in that role, and it just the way the dynamic shifts depending on what the circumstances is, but it's all completely convincing, it all works, and this is a nice little scene.
Yeah, relationship always does, and it's very complicated. You're totally right.
Yeah. And then we finish with the hilarious joke where they're like, oh, let's get Worf.
Before we do that, though, we've got the bit, of course, you're missing the wonderful...
Have I missed it? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you missed some wonderful character development. Martok's wife comes on and goes, everything's cool.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Yeah, why is everything cool? Why are you at all one right? I mean, all you had to have is a scene where Martok goes, oh, stop being a bitch there. Like, you know, I mean, not in those terms, because I did say about chin stuff, so I shouldn't do that, but I'm just saying.
Maybe Dax has dug up some right shit on her. Maybe she's like, I found some, you know, I've found in your deep, dark, secret family past, you're actually related to one of the Klingons who had the smooth foreheads, or, you know, something like that, maybe.
I mean, you could have done it so it's almost like a double buff as well. You get Martok going in ready to convince her, and then she goes, what? When she told me to fuck off was the moment when I accepted her.
There you go. That'd have been perfect.
Nice.
Yeah,
and
I just wanted...
When she had the balls to stand up to me.
Yeah, I just wanted to see that she would actually be herself and not kowtow to me. Yeah, that'd have been perfect. Well, it wouldn't have been perfect because it had the rest of the episode around it, but it would have been better than what we got.
Better.
Yeah.
But off screen, she's got to say sorry, and that's what swung her.
Oh, that's how it should have finished. It should have had Worf and Dax, and don't misinterpret this, Worf and Dax lying in bed together, and Worf turns to Dax and he goes, so how did you convince Cyrilla? And she goes, oh, I killed Alexander. And Worf sort of looks at her for a second and then goes, and that's...
you think Worf would spare a look? I mean, that's out of the year compared to Worf.
And that's the end, yeah. And Dax just sort of winks at the camera like, he's dead. Anyway. Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
It's okay because Alexander and his new ship that gets blown up the next time they encounter the Dominion.
That's sure it will do,
ships you can see get blown up.
There we go then. We'll headcanon that Alexander doesn't make it, thankfully.
Can I just talk on one more thing? When again, I'm probably going to incorrectly say the Samoan gentleman who's doing the fire dancing.
Yeah.
When they're talking, they mention Captain Shelby.
Oh, they do? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It's a nice little Easter egg.
That was
a fun little bit. I mean, we must pick out the 2 or 3 fun bits in this episode.
Yeah, I think we did. I think we've done well.
Yeah, we always missed that one out of the 3.
To hit our 30-minute quota for that episode. I think we deserve a pat on the back for that.
Well, sometimes the crap ones are the easiest to talk about, just because, like, can you believe they did this shit?
Slightly better, I would say, the next episode, Statistical Probabilities, though I do have some issues with this episode. I don't think it all works, but I think at the core of it, there's some interesting ideas. So I'm looking forward to getting into this one a little bit more.
This is one I really enjoy. I think there's some personal reasons to it. Sorry,
this is another cheap episode because it's only set in a couple of sets, so we can tell where the cost saving. We know the cost saving but this one's an example of a well-written cheap episode where the dialogue does drive it. There's some ethically, some of it's a bit questionable when you look back at it now, but was it when it was made and all that? How the actually people are used, but
I mean, my feeling is that it's like, I mean, I really enjoyed this episode. I think there's some personal skin in the game. It feels like, even though I always sound so name dropping. When I was talking to Alexander Sid, as he insisted I called him, he confirmed that there was no thought to kind of neurodiversity or anything. That wasn't a term we used certainly at the time. But I think some of the best Star Trek episodes, the reason why they resonate with people so much, even on subjects which they weren't even thinking about at the time, is because they're just based in kindness and in kind of caring for people who are a bit different and on the outskirts. So even though they weren't thinking this at the time, it's such natural allegory for autism, for ADHD, for people who think differently.
It feels hard to... I'm not doubting Sid's word, but it does feel hard that no one was considering autism, for example, in like particularly with the portrayal of Jack. I mean, I think it feels like an exaggerated representation of autism, and I think that's why I found it a little uncomfortable.
I don't know. I've met people with autism who are severely autistic who would fall within the boundaries of Jack or of the other guys quiet with the mousy hair, the great comedic Patrick. He is such a great heartfelt comedic actor. That performance is wonderful. But so I met people who kind of quite concerned. They are played up a little bit, as any character is on a show like this. It wasn't a drama like Star Trek didn't really do. It did do some wonderful drama, but it was kind of like, it wasn't like harsh reality in these days. It was kind of like, it was a bit fantastical in its portrayal, even though Deep Space Nine is probably as far as it went this far. But the bits which which kind of probably chime into what you were saying before, Jim, I do think some of the leaps they make of like stuff they work out is ridiculous, which we'll get onto when we get there. But other than that, it is one of my favorite episodes, especially now that, again, I must admit, it's got a personal link. But you were saying about like the writers. Sorry, just very quickly. I think maybe the writers at the time, even autism wasn't really in the conversation much at this time. So I wonder if maybe they met some people who so it wasn't maybe conscious to link it back to those things.
No,
but
maybe
unaware, they were doing that.
I think it's just with some of the things they do with Jack in particular, like the verbal tick that he has, where he goes, I can't even do it, the thing that he does. And I know that people do have vocal tics, but to me it just feels like it's dialed up to the point that it's meant to irritate the audience, which I don't feel that's a nice way of representing something. Do you know what I mean? Like if they were presenting someone who had a verbal tic and people were irritated by it, fine. But I think starting out with a character and going, okay, we're going to give him this verbal tic that's going to be really irritating. I don't necessarily. I feel like I don't feel like it's a good faith way of approaching it. And I may be wrong. It may have been the actor's choice. I don't know, but I do find Jack irritating, and I suspect you meant to, which I'm not sure I'm comfortable with.
I mean, you might be right. I guess just because I have met people who've got tics that severe or more so. Because it used to, like, that sort of thing used to irritate me, but the more I've learned about it, the less I'm irritated by it.
No, that's the thing. It wouldn't irritate me in real life if someone had a verbal tic like that. It's the fact that it feels very stagey and very much like they're going, we want this character to have an irritating verbal tic, and that feels in a way disrespectful to me. it just doesn't quite sit right with me.
That's what I said right at the start, isn't it? It's what, we're 30 years on now, nearly, from these episodes, from when this was. So there's sort of things, how we look at things and how we are with things. We look at the world differently from when this show was made.
Yeah.
You've got to look at it also from when it was made. It was very forward looking.
Yeah, I mean, you look at other portrayals at the time of autism, and like I think other portrayals at the time tended to capture one type of autism.
Yeah.
Like, whereas autism, we now realize is a spectrum, as in a lot of these things, you're going to have different symptoms and everything else. Whereas this one is the most complicated view of autism and neurodiversity. I think there is kind of some signs of maybe ADHD in there.
If you look at TV about when this was made, this is like groundbreaking what it's showing. It's challenging now to look at it because of how it's showing it. But at the time it was made, it was very, very progressive.
It was. And I think the conversations that they have around it are really, really interesting. Like, something I picked up on right at the beginning is there's this discussion of basically Bashir having what we would call passing privileges now, because it's like, well, you don't have any overt tics and you don't have this and you don't have that, and you can present yourself as in inverted commas normal person, whereas we can't. And I think that's a really interesting discussion to be having, and it throws that in really early.
Yeah, and they're segregated because of it. And like she makes the argument, he goes, this is something their parents did when they were children. They had no say in it.
Yep.
But they're the ones being punished for it.
Yeah. I think the way they've evolved this conversation, even though this is a great conversation about it, now that they're taking a stab at this in a way in Strange New Worlds, and in Discovery, they did a bit of it with kind of people not being able to serve because they had some sort of like engineering. I think it's really fascinating, like the way they're kind of still spinning this out now and still kind of covering the same
this does that was what I was going to come on to, is like this presents a quite horrific really view of it. That's, well, we've got these people who are genetically augmented and effectively we're going to lock them up, and the way Jack phrases it is, well, they use the eugenics wars as an excuse to do that. Like, something went wrong once 300 years ago, and as a result of that, a whole subset of people are being punished for it, locked up for it. And, this is something we see over and over again in politics, and without, wishing to open up a huge discussion. But like, for example, what we've got going on at the moment with like the trans debate at the minute, the argument they're using is, well, something might happen, so therefore we can't allow a whole group of people to do this.
Yeah, something might happen that's never happened. This
is a similar thing that's been presented here, like, and that is, when you take a step back from that is ridiculous, because these people effectively are harmless in the sense that, none of them is going to become the next Khan, but the Federation seemingly is justified in locking them up, and it's
to be fair, Jack probably does need to be locked up, because look at how he what's the name that he threatening to kill if he didn't get away.
Yeah. So Jack does have violent tendencies.
Jack has violent tendencies, but the others don't.
No.
Well, also it reminds me of when I was working as a care worker. There was a thing where they were trying to do active kind of like put the people with different mental, I don't want to say disorders, but like mental challenges, however you like to term it. They were trying to give them more control, trying to restrict them less from things, which is great. And I was like all in favor of that. And sometimes this kind of brought people out in some wonderful ways. However, there were other people who would just destroy all their things, and then they would have to be bought again. And they were in turmoil, and I don't think it made them happy, or it increased their life, basically. It didn't give them any more freedom. And I don't have an answer for that, by the way. It's just, it was really interesting that like, I don't know what the answer is, but this kind of covers this before that was really, like, we're talking about like 2010s when I was doing that. And this is back in the 90s and they're covering those issues, which is just so clever.
The fact that they do have like a scene with all the crew debating it, you know, like, and you've got sort of O'Brien and Worf taking the stance, well, no, they shouldn't be allowed the same rights as everyone else because can. And it's like, that's, you know, that's pretty extreme. But
and also
it's interesting that they let the characters voice that and they hash it out and they...
And it's interesting to see because, like, we always sold this ideal of the Federation, it's this utopia and all that, but they've still got bigotry. There's still certain areas that they are bigotry about, and the general population is also brought up with this bigotry. They're educated in it that because can genetic engineering because can.
Well, also there was the line which Bashir says, which kind of, again, really, it was hard for it not to really resonate with me. He goes, there, but for the grace of God, go I. But I now see people, it's kind of weird to change your identity. It's a kind of change your identity when you find out you've got something like autism or ADHD. Not that it kind of affects who you are at your core, but like those things are considered by legal definition as a disability. I don't see myself as having a disability. And you said all this stuff kind of comes into your head. And when I get to know people with different different neurodiversity or different kind of mental health challenges, I do think sometimes like some of the stuff they suffer with, which is on a scale to where what I deal with on a daily basis, they're but for the grace of God, go I. Like if I had I don't like to, again, I try and avoid talking in terms of severity because it's not a scale of severity. It's just like you've got these parts of ADHD, you've got these parts of autism. But you can't help but think it's like that could have been me if kind of something else had definitely happened chemically in my brain or during my childhood or whatever else you kind of put this down to. It's
a really good topic to get into, and it like you say, it does resonate now in lots of other areas. Like again, there's a bit in this where they're talking about things that again we see on the news, whether it is the trans debate, whether it's LGBT, whether it's neurodiversity, and they're talking about things like, well, should they be allowed to be involved in sports? What about being in Starfleet? What does that do to the other people that are involved? And these are debates that do come up again and again and again. And you know what? It's quite prescient sometimes in Star Trek. I know that's a pretty blindingly obvious thing to say, but
you look at Bashir usually, by and large, doesn't have many Achilles' heels to his intellectual superiority. But in here, it kind of does give him something. It gives him a blindness to because he's mathematically worked this out. Nothing else matters because the statistics they've come up with show they're definitely going to fail. But he doesn't then, and Elliot, you're going to love this one, he doesn't take into account space magic, which of course, like if to no one else, space magic is real to them because they've got Cisco there and they know he talks to the prophet. They know that's already won them a huge battle in the bigger war. Yet that doesn't occur to Bashir because he always only thinks in the numbers. And
no, it gets at the end. One man really can make a difference, and one man has made a difference because Sloan has already acted.
That's true, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. They talk about... There is a nice reference later on where they're talking about their projections and they say, well, we've factored in if there's an uprising on Cardassia Prime against the Dominion, which, spoilers, that's going to happen. But, like, Squee made the point there that surely they've not factored in, oh, well, what if Gulda Cat goes evil and gets possessed by a power wraith? And, you know, there's a lot of weird shit going to go down before we get to the end of this. So.
And if you think about how they've got out of most of their scrapes on Deep Space Nine, I bet you, if you work out at best it's going to be 50-50 between space magic and science.
Yeah.
But again, it's a wonderful way of showing that sometimes when your neurodiversity locks you into facts and statistics, you miss the emotion and the human side of it, which in this case, sort of the humanity shown through magic, because it's like it's that unpredictability.
Yeah. And that's ultimately the message, isn't it, that Cisco's trying to get across, that there is something about the human spirit that can't be, and I use human broadly there. There is something about the spirit of a living being that can't be quantified in numbers.
He using the check of humanity from Star Trek 6.
Yeah, that's
all species.
All species, exactly.
Everyone's human, even Klingons.
As Spock says, I find that remark insulting. So yeah, then we do get all this great stuff with Damar, where they're looking at him and reading him, and I get why they do this to drive the story forward, but they're going, oh my God, the things that they picked up. And it's like, it wasn't that hard.
No. In fact, I'll go the other way.
I'm going to side with Squee on this because I think I know what he's up to say.
Go on, then.
No, I was...
Oh, yeah, okay.
No,
what I was going to say is, I think there's the first two or three things they justify why they pick up on it, and there's body language and there's all this, and that's fine. And then basically writers go, fuck it, we're just going to say they work it all out and not justify why. It's like, how do they know about the princess? Why specifically that? Like, I can see that they could see he hadn't had sleep, dark eyes. Yeah, fine, that's fine. They could see that he's maybe feeling guilty about something. I could even guess they could intuit that he'd killed someone. Or and like they might know about they probably know about to cut to put that together. But how the fuck they get the hell out of that? How the fuck they get some of this other stuff?
You can see he's under duress. He's being made to.
Yeah, you can see that.
That's no problem with that.
No
lethal logic. Read his body language. Yeah, he's drinking a lot. Yeah, we can see that in his eyes.
Yep, and he definitely killed a girl. What?
Okay, that bit maybe.
At least give us some logical basis why.
I do feel like they do give you a little bit, because they go, oh, he's killed the leader. No, it's not the leader, and so the implication is that they're getting that from him. Like it's not somebody as important as a leader, so it must be somebody. But yeah, but then there is a degree of like confirmation bias coming in from Bashir, because he's going, oh, Zial, yep. And so he almost does nudge him a little bit.
It's almost like
he's already
doing that. I'm getting a word. I'm getting a word.
It's
I'm going to say they say, oh, no, it's not the king, it's the prince. Like they say something along those lines. Then he goes to O'Brien, which, okay, they've got to sit here and fine. They might hear him going, see how, but it's already after they've worked out exactly who she is to the person.
I'll have to watch that scene again, because it's interesting that I bought it and you guys didn't. That's interesting. I'm sure you two are right and I'm wrong, but
because I love Sherlock Holmes, and when Sherlock Holmes is written well, there's always they always explain how he does the trick. It's very Penn and Teller that way, which I'm going to go and see tomorrow. Yay! But in this one, it's like it's like a bad Sherlock Holmes. They justify a couple bits, then they just throw in that that he knows everything else. They don't tell you why. And the whole thing with Holmes is telling us how brilliant the writer is. Quite frankly, it's the writer saying how brilliant they are, that they thought of this mystery and a way that he'd know all this stuff.
True.
Like the writers have to be clever, because that's what makes us go, oh my God, that's really great, because they could have picked it up from that, which none of the rest of us would. But they don't give us that for the second half of the video.
So we do get this thing. This is where they're making all these predictions and everything. One thing I did find interesting is that they say, oh, well, that we'll be subjugated by the Dominion, but then we'll come back as a stronger federation in the future. And that's kind of what's playing out in Discovery at the moment. So, okay, they got it wrong that it was the Dominion War, but I do like the idea that there's a little grain of truth.
They got the fall and the rebirth.
Yeah, I
It's
just like that.
They never thought it would just be an angry dude on a planet.
No, that's it, exactly. And that's it. They didn't take into account the space magic of the Kelpians and
Space magic,
all that stuff. Now, Bashir then. So Bashir gets really into this. And for me, it's a little bit quick. Because we've talked about the Bashir of the last several episodes, how he's very into his role as part of the war, and he's very like, come on, we need to win this war, and all this. And I get that he's sort of among his own people, for want of a better term, and there's something quite welcoming and seductive about that. And I even get that it boosts his ego a bit, that, you know, we're doing something that no one else can, and we can see something more clearly. And I get all of that, but it still just seems a little bit quick that he goes from where he was to, we need to surrender because we've worked it out, and that's what you need to do.
I do believe this, actually. For me, it's sort of like, again, I'm not exactly the same. There was no big space war involved, but like when it was just someone who kind of basically said to me, it's like, oh, I've just recently got diagnosed. Like, I think you've got inattentive ADHD, very specifically, they said. And it, like, that's where it all began. And when I started having conversations with people who are neurodiverse, who I knew were neurodiverse, and I was, it was like having a conversation which I never had, like on a level that I've never had. Like, you know, I'm not saying when I'm talking to you guys, I don't talk on a perfectly pure level, but I never had a conversation like knowing that my quirkiness matches that person's quirkiness for a very specific reason. And it's like a conversation I never had before. And how seductive that is, I completely get. So when he's surrounded by all these people, he's a super genius, and he never gets to talk on a level like that with anyone. Like, he's probably met a handful of people in his life from different species who can match him intellectually, and he can actually have that kind of conversation. And even then he couldn't, because he had to pretend he didn't have this.
Yeah. No, I
would buy it that he would.
I get it. I feel like, and again, I think there's a bit too much naivety to an extent, because he must know that the Federation are not going to surrender, even if you can show mathematically why they should. I can't believe that Bashir would honestly expect them to do it. You know, there's just little bits of it that don't.
I can tie it back to something you said a few weeks ago, Jim, actually, because you were saying about, like, they've shown how angry he's getting in the war and stuff. So they do lay down the groundwork that I think he's just like cracked, to be honest. It's a mixture of cracking and also getting people who talk his language. I think the seductiveness of that at a time when he's already so frustrated with the war and so frustrated he can see things others can't. When everyone else can, maybe that just kind of just sends him over the edge, like, fuck it, we need to surrender.
I think like the thing that I think like the thing where they prove that they could be valuable and all that when they're listening to stuff. And and they get to listen to the negotiation piece between Cisco and
Damar
and Wayoon. And they put it into actual Dominionese, like Is Dominionese a bit like how the Federation has made the rest of the galaxy speak English?
I think so.
But you're right, it's very clever. That bit is very clever. I love the fact when they go to the original language, so the translation's not quite right.
The translation's not quite right. And they're not looking at this specific sector or star system.
Yeah. No, it's really good.
And it looks like it's pointless, but you can synthesize Ketracel White.
Yeah, all that stuff's brilliant. And yeah, the idea of flipping the language, because you do lose nuance when you have a language translated. You know, like when I was studying film at university and we'd watch foreign language films, and when you do some sort of reading into some of them, it's like, okay, this is what the character says, but the fact that they're saying that in French, the meaning isn't literally what, and stuff like that's fascinating.
I mean, it's like if you look at the Bible, like the translated version that we use today, when people use that as a, like, we were talking about LGBTQ rights, when people use the kind of Sodom and Gomorrah against gay people, when you go back to the original translation, actually, what we're reading is night and day to what it actually says anyway,
Well,
just to begin with.
That's bad in Utah now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
they got the Bible banned.
Oh, God, yeah, I did hear about this. Their own bullshit laws worked against them.
Yeah, because, like, what's annoying, what the right wing in America and our country, to be fair, in fact, all right wings, they pull out segments of the Bible that they want to, and they'll go, right, it says this, and they'll attack LGBTQ because of it. And then, the paragraph before says that you can't do this. Do you do that? Yeah, but that
don't count.
And again, if you go back to original translation, none of that makes sense. None of it's in there. It's just we've translated it badly and then reprinted it and then rewritten it again. It's just anyway.
Also, not to be too controversial, but somebody made it up.
James O'Brien does talks, and he actually has a priest on that he's talking to, who's all who's trying to do all this that you should against LGBTQ and all that. And James O'Brien starts going, "What, you getting that from Leviticus?" And he goes, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you're getting that from so verse, aren't you?" He goes, "Yes, it does." He goes, "Oh, well, you'll also follow so from this, won't you? Are you wearing a woolen jumper?" What? Have you got a shirt on? Yeah, what's that made of? Well, you need to be executed.
Yeah, you need to be stoned. It's crazy.
Getting back to the episode, I did want to, before we forget, cover I love the scene with O'Brien when he comes in.
Yeah.
And first of all, there's the humming thing, which is just great. It's a great metaphor for things which, because, okay, this is a particular sound, but it's a great metaphor for all the things which annoy the neurodiverse person or some neurodiverse people that no one else can see. And I thought that was just a stunning metaphor, probably unintentional, but it's there. For all these things that bug people, like someone thinks you're being unreasonable because you've got to have things a certain way. But it's like, if they're not that way, that's like someone screaming in my ear. And it's anyway. But like when O'Brien comes in and they love him, but like Jack, not Jack. What's the other guy's name?
Patrick.
And he gets upset and like he puts the party hat on. And that guy who's playing Patrick, God, he's a good actor. I enjoy him in this one and the other one they appear in when he's just pretending to be an admiral.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Good and so fun. But like again, I've met that shade of autistic person who's just all about love and about people, like, and gets so easily upset, but they're actually really clever if you talk to them. It's just it's such a great portrayal, and just that actor, he's that kind of like actor which is like very old school, kind of like Hollywood kind of character actor. So he reminds me a bit of Jonathan Winters, who played Mork's son in Mork and Mindy, like who was an old man, and he was kind of classic American comedian who was also a character actor in a lot of films and TV shows. And this guy is of that ilk. Like you don't get actors quite like that anymore. And he's just one, like Jack Black's about as close as we've got now. And he's a different thing again, I feel like genius, but just in a different way. And I just want to spend a minute to say that. And also, the fact I love that O'Brien thinks they don't like him. Actually, they really like you. They find you quite simple.
Yeah, and there is a nice bit where there's a bit of tension. Sorry, go on, Elliot.
I was about to say this part with O'Brien. I like as well, because like this, the first part he's coming and solved the noise, and it's this and this, and he fixed it. But then when he's gone back and all that, and he won't put that on, the work is going, I've got to replace this plasma conduit, and you're going, there's nothing wrong with the plasma conduit, is there? You're just missing your friend. You want to play with your friend, don't you?
It's nice as well, because it's like I kind of like the fact as well that usually O'Brien would get grumpy about that, but I like the fact they play a bit different. He kind of like, he seems in on it. Like he's like, he tries to deny it for a second, but once he's called me, he's like, I do kind of want to spend some time with my mate.
Yeah.
And I like the bit with Bashir and O'Brien where they almost have a little bit of a row, because Bashir's getting a little bit not hoity-toity, that's the wrong thing. A bit intellectually superior, and O'Brien sort of does take offense to it because he's like, well, hang on. So are you saying we're not on your level? Like you're condescending to us? And there is a little part of Bashir, I think, that does view it that way. I don't think he views it in a negative way. Like if you go back to the sort of classical definition of condescending, it's not.
Sorry, James, explain condescending to us a bit more.
I will explain condescending to you, but this is my point: is you hear the word and you immediately take it as a negative, and it sounds like a bad thing to do to people. But if you take sort of the literal definition of it, if you are in some way superior to someone else, you do condescend to speak to them, and it's not a bad thing. It's a discourse that takes place when somebody's there. And I think there's a bit of Bashir that does think that, and I think he thinks, well, I am superior to you in a lot of ways, but that doesn't mean we're not friends or whatever. But I think there is it is in his head that I am condescending to you to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, 2 points on that. Firstly, Elliot, what he's trying to say is condescending means to talk down to people. So anyway, as I was saying, the point which I'd see in this as well is that, again, I feel like this is showing that it's, with any kind of personality types, there's good and bad sides. And this deals with a very mature way of showing that, like, again, it does give a bit of a drawback to his superior intelligence, the fact that he can't think outside of it sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important. I don't think there's many episodes where they do cover that for Bashir. It's seen as a net benefit for most of the time, whereas it's nice to see some struggles which people go through.
Yeah, it is.
For their hyper-intelligence, that they can be cut off. They can be emotionally unintelligent sometimes. That's really interesting to play without patronizing. And even when, like...
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, even with O'Brien, again, they don't make him, like, a lot of episodes, O'Brien would just get grumpy. But here, even when, like, O'Brien does make his point, he gets upset with Julian. But later on, when they're together, he goes, like, I'm really sorry. I know you really believed in this. Like, he doesn't just dismiss it. And that's such a mature way of doing it. Whoever wrote this, I should have looked, but it's genius writing on this episode.
I like the darts game sort of sums up between O'Brien and Bashir, and you got Julian and his sub next to him, and he's winning, and then O'Brien realizes, hold on, you've got improved genetics.
Yeah,
get back to your mark. And then he wins one game, and Julian thinks he can come down. He goes, no, just because I win one doesn't mean that you're back on a level with me.
And I still think Julian's throwing it. I still think he's playing like, even then.
Yeah,
possibly so. Yeah, but again, I mean, I've talked at length before, but I do think the O'Brien and Bashir relationship is so well written because they do have these little falling outs and these little things, but they deal with it in an emotionally mature way, which you don't often see on TV. You know.
And I think this is superior to how they usually do it. Like, I think it's even better, and they do it usually very well.
I was about to say, it has been argued a lot, and this is a great example of it. This is the best romance ever on TV. These two.
It's the OG romance.
Of a male, of two blokes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think using the term bromance sort of underserves it, really.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is a very realistic portrayal of male friendship, which you don't see a lot of on TV, especially at this time. You know, in the 90s, if most shows, if they were portraying two male characters who were very close, they would have to put in jokes about them being perceived to be homosexual. You know, like you get that in Friends with Joey and Chandler.
Yeah.
And, you know, who are clearly best friends. There's nothing sexual to it, but it's almost like they have to go, oh, well, you know, obviously people are going to think that. And it's just such an outdated view of the world. But the fact that Star Trek was like, no, we're not going to do that. That's ridiculous. Let's just show these guys are friends.
they do this sort of, they achieve the same thing, but in a more grown up way. So they kind of have O'Brien, who can be in certain situations. He isn't like someone to talk about his feelings naturally. And they cover that. They have him to begin with, sort of like pushing Julian away. And Julian is a bit young and annoying to begin with. So he's got reason to push him away. And as Julian matures, like emotionally, you've got O'Brien. It's what O'Brien does, but it's in their own way. So like basically Bashir comes down a little bit and O'Brien kind of like opens up a little bit and they meet in the middle, because that's what a good friendship does as well. Like it's
exactly. And they do have these little tiffs and things, but they're mature enough to go, well, we're not going to fall out over it. We disagree on something, and this episode is a good example of that. And like you say, when it wraps up, you've got O'Brien going and talking to him and, you know, commiserating with him that, you know, it'd have been great if everything had worked out, but it didn't. And, you know, that I get why that's going to hurt you, but.
And we don't want to miss out the beauty. Like, I don't think I've not got too much to say on it, but I just want to pay reference to the wonderful Cisco scene where he gets to lay the smack down with Bashir. Always fun time to see Cisco.
It's good when but without your approval, they'll just dismiss it. I should certainly hope they will dismiss it. Yeah, it's really good. It is a really good episode. Certainly better than the wedding one. But
a lot better than the wedding one.
And we will see the so-called Jack Pack again in season 7, though I don't think we'll be covering it for the Dominion War.
We have to cover it for something else. I love that episode.
We'll cover it eventually.
I'm not being funny. If we fitted the wedding episode in to the Dominion War, I think we can cover the next time these.
The next time they're in, what are they doing again? Sorry, I do love the both the episodes.
Not much. It's misguided romance between Bashir and the quiet lady, and it's like he thinks he's developed something that'll bring her out of herself, and it's right.
It's basically a retake of Flowers for Algernon.
Basically, yeah,
but
but without the mouse.
I think it's only that they only appear in one more episode. I think it makes sense that we'll actually include it.
Well,
if we included the wedding on the flimsy excuse it had Alexander in again,
and at the beginning of the next episode they're in, you've got Patrick pretending to be an admiral, which those admirals will be deep into the war. So I think that.
Okay. Then.
I'm sure.
Well, anyway, we're not going to need to have that debate for a while because next week we've got brand new Star Trek again in the form of Strange New Worlds season 2. Which, if you're listening to this live, will be available Friday, unless you somehow have alternative means of obtaining.
Unless you know someone in the Bajoran militia.
Yeah, then it will be Friday. As always, we will not post any spoilers anywhere on any of our social medias.
No.
The first time we will talk about anything to do with the content of the episode will be on the podcast next week.
However, our little retract chat we have will be going bing, 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 because we will
we will be doing that.
I will say, if anybody does have anything to say that they want to talk about, PM us through the week. But don't post,
absolutely.
But don't post anything on our Facebook page, because as always, that is a spoiler-free zone until we put out these podcasts.
Yeah, we purposefully keep the reason why it's not coincidence the episodes are either Wednesday or Thursday. It's purposely to give people time to watch it. I suggested before moving it earlier in the week, and you guys correctly said, no, we want to give people time to watch it. Like, make sure we can go spoilery as we want, because people have had basically
that's it.
Watch it.
Yeah, and people do watch things at different times. So yeah,
some people won't watch things till the weekend. They might have Sunday as the telly time. It might be Monday or Tuesday evening.
But if you do want to get in touch with us for anything other than spoilers, we're at RetrekPod on Twitter. It's retrekpod@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Facebook, YouTube. Elliot's got Retrek Model Studios going on.
I have, and I've not been at my desk at all for nearly a fortnight. It's just been too hot over here to.
That's true.
Sit down and be doing stuff because it's right in my window with sun.
Oh, well, I'll use the opportunity to plug my YouTube channel then, where I unbox and play with toys. So Kingy's Toy Box, we've got some DC superheroes figures to have a look at on there.
Yeah, you got 2 figures and a vehicle.
I didn't. Oh, well, yes, you said I got the vehicle.
But have you found it? I saw it drop out as you shook that box.
Not found it yet, mate. We'll see. We'll see. And if you want to know what all that's about, check out Kingy's Toy Box. Dr. Squee, what have we got on the Dr. Squee show?
Wait 1 second. There you go. King's Toy Box on YouTube.
Hey, there we go.
Banners on command. Right. I'm almost embarrassed to try this again just because third time lucky. But basically, I've been trailing Ian Smith, the comedian who hosts the Northern Northeast podcast, for 3 weeks now. 1 week, yeah, I might have had a couple of deaths in the family. The next week, he basically kind of forgot, which happens. And so we're going to go for third time lucky. We might. I'm waiting for an answer back from his people.
Willow in bloody prison because of that. You forgot to lock Willow up.
Yeah. So anyway, so 7 to 8 Tuesday, sw20radio.co.uk, drswee.com for all the video versions. And if Ian, we're kind of just working out the times and dates, but hopefully Ian will be live on both. We're going to do a live episode on Tuesday. I'm just waiting to confirm because I got offered his agent offered me 6:30, and I said, well, if you can make it 7 on Tuesday, we can just go live. So hopefully that'll be a thing.
Nice.
Awesome. And thanks for trekking with us this time. We will see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Goodbye.
LLAP and track off.
Fascinating.